Welcome to the Sci-Fi Sci, a podcast about black science fiction and fantasy and staying on the same page in this marriage. I am one of your incredible, talented hosts, Amber Wallen.
And I'm Ben.
And this week, we decided to watch a movie on Netflix. A little Netflix and chill, but a little less chill. We were actually watching the movie. We watched the movie Sweetheart, directed by J.D. Dillard and starring Kiersey Clemons. Oh, and it was fun.
It was fun. We almost didn't get to watching the movie. I think you were upset at me right as we started to watch it or something.
Yeah, we got into a fight before the movie because I was trying to get you to watch an episode of Schitt's Creek and you were just like, I don't watch things like that because my life is precious and I only have a couple of breaths and hours and minutes and I don't spend it watching satire. I was just like, okay, girl, fuck you.
Yeah, I said it exactly like that.
Yep.
And I was drinking tea and twirling my mustache.
You were.
And I just ate a child, a little baby.
I hate this notion with you that things that aren't science fiction are a complete waste of your time.
It's not science fiction. It's science fiction. If it's not science fiction, fantasy, horror, yes, it's a complete waste of my time. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, but spending time with me is never a waste of time.
You're right. It's never, yes, what was I saying? It's never a waste of time. Ever, ever.
You're the freaking worst. You know what else is the worst? Before we get into the movie today, I'm also picking another fight with Ben, so maybe y'all can chime in on all of our marriage problems because we're trying to stay on the same page. Every night when I go to bed, I lay me down to sleep. I turn over and Ben is right next to me. And then when I wake up in the morning, Ben's head is at the foot of the bed, and I'm at the top of the bed by myself.
Well, there's a good reason for that.
What's the reason?
It really depends how many glasses of wine you drank the night before. So if you drank no glasses of wine, I sleep directly next to you. If you drink one glass of wine, right as you go to sleep, I hear throughout the night.
Well, some people snore. We can't all be sweethearts.
No, it's fine. It's fine. One glass of wine snore is fine. I can deal with that. 2 glasses of wine starts to go like this.
But
I can deal with that too if I fall asleep before you. But if I don't, and you have 2 glasses of wine or 3 glasses of wine, which I will not demonstrate for the audience because that itself is a horror movie.
It's not that bad. My snoring is not that bad.
No, it's not, sweetheart.
I hate you. I just like girls snore, women snore, femmes snore. So you just gotta suck it up. Is it because I'm a girl snoring, or is it just really that loud and unbearable?
I wouldn't have. Yeah, no. That sounds like a trick question.
I would like to know the answer.
No, of course not.
The truth comes out.
Obviously not. No. It's because I cannot go to sleep. Because it's loud. Because it's right next to my ear. And you go to sleep on drop of a dime. That's beautiful.
What does that even mean?
Drop of a dime?
Like if a dime falls on the floor, I can go to sleep? What are we talking about?
We'll have to look that up on Urban Dictionary or something.
Oh, please. That ain't
accurate.
That ain't one of our phrases. You want to talk about the movie?
Yeah, we should probably talk about the movie.
Well, we're getting into the movie Sweetheart today, which is essentially like what you think is the start of like a Castaway black girl version, but it turns out not to be that. And then it gets into this trope of the final girl, which I can relate to because when I wake up every morning, I feel like the final girl alone in my bed because your ass is at the foot of the bed.
No, I'm still in the bed with you though.
Yeah, but you at the foot of it.
Okay.
Talk to them about the damn movie before you make me mad.
Well, first of all, listeners, can you help us out here? Because we're trying to formulate more panels of movies to watch, black movies, so it has to be starring black folk, it has to be directed by black folk, to talk about. And so when I was trying to come up with panels for this podcast, I thought of, let's do black time travel movies. Didn't really find any. Let's do black sword and sorcery movies. Didn't really find any. Let's do black purgatory movies, right? Mm-hmm. So like Beetlejuice or What Dreams May Come. didn't really find, but we did find one, which we'll get into later, a Kenyan film. I was trying to find black space opera movies, like a list of them. Couldn't really find any. I was trying to find like non-DC and non-Marvel black superheroes movies, and I got really excited because I found one, and then I realized that it was directed by a white woman.
Mm-hmm. You talking about Blade?
Blade would actually Blade is Marvel. Surprise!
Oh, I know that.
Yeah, Blade is Marvel. But again, Blade is not directed by a black director.
Mm-hmm.
So we were really, really struggling. So we settled on the Final Girl. We found two movies to discuss about today. Mm-hmm. One was Sweetheart. The other one was Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. But both of those movies are directed by black folk, but black men. And they do star black women. So that was, yay, plus. But that was a struggle. And I remember I was trying to do some research here. And I was getting really frustrated.
And I was over here like, welcome to the club. You're frustrated?
Yeah, it was sort of just a frustration out of research, Right. And Amber was like, yeah, this is the frustration of my fucking life, bitch. Like,
I didn't say that.
No, you would never. Yeah. You would never call me bitch. You never call me bitch. ever.
Talk about the movie, please. You all want today.
All right. So, what is the Final Girl trope? You read that article, which I read this morning very quickly.
Yeah, I love how you send me articles and you're like, wait, I haven't read them either.
No, I did end up reading it.
Great.
So, the Final Girl article written by Vox, which was super cool to read.
It was very, very enlightening. So it's essentially this trope where there is one, the movie might start with a cast of people, maybe they're all friends, maybe they're all family, and as whatever this monster is slashing people and killing people, there ends up being one girl left to defeat the monster. And so it's this trope that's called the Final Girl trope. But this amazing, let me turn because I do not want to misquote her, Carol J. Clover wrote a book in 1992 called Men, Women, and Chainsaws, Gender in Modern Horror Film. And she created this trope. She first coined the phrase. And she also said there were basically like 4 big qualifiers that the final girl has. There's 4 big traits that the final girl has. 1 is that she has sex in the movie. 2 is that the final girl has a unisex name. 3 is that the final girl knows the killer. And 4, the final girl might be brunette. Most of them are brunette. So that was really interesting to see. So let me think of one of those that checked all 4 boxes. So in Scream, the movie that was created in 1996, Sydney had all 4 of those qualifiers. Had sex with, in the movie, knew the killer, brunette, had a unisex name. Sydney's pretty unisex. So yeah. So that was interesting to look at those boxes. Sort of like the Bechdel test, but the final girl, right?
Yeah. Sweetheart sort of messes with that trope a little bit. So give you a background. This young woman wakes up on the beach and she is surrounded by no one and she is alone on this beach. And we soon discover that she was on this boat party trip with some friends and a storm happened and she's washed up on shore and she has to slowly sort of survive. And so you see her collecting water because she can't drink the salt water. Mm-hmm. You see her trying to make fire. You see her building shelter. But as she's doing this, mm-hmm. right, as she's trying to discover how to survive, she is slowly seeing some strange things about this island. For one, she sees a half shark ripped to shreds. Mm-hmm. She sees
fish, dead fish just wash up on shore, which is great because she's like, oh great, I don't have to catch fish today. But then she's intelligent in the movies. Yes, intelligent black girl with her fro. Her fro is out the whole time. It's not just beautiful hair, sorry. But she's seeing something strange happening, and she's like, there's no way, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Why are just fish washing up on shore?
What was her name again? Because
it was Jen.
So
yeah. The unisex, and that wasn't it.
And it is weird that I would forget her name because it is not weird that I would forget her name. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. It was not weird that I would forget her name because for the first 50 minutes, there's no dialogue.
None.
Because it is her just discovering mm-hmm. certain parts of the island. When she washes up on the shore, there is somebody who washes up next to her. and he has this like seashell stuck in him. So she tries to talk to him. That's the first line of dialogue. And he ominously says, "Did you see it?" Mm-hmm. And you're like, wait, see what? And soon we discover the most frightening scene of the movie. Spoiler, huge spoiler, is that she wakes up one night, she sees a plane going by, she takes this flare that she was able to discover, shoots the flare gun out, and as the flare is coming down, she sees this like monstery shadow come up. Think of Creature from the Black Lagoon come up, and it's just the shadow of it.
And when I tell you, when we saw that monster silhouette, that's when we sat up in the bed. Because up until that point, I wouldn't say things had been moving slowly. Like, really great, well-shot images of whatever island they were on. It was interesting. It was like, okay, this is like Tom Hanks. Where Wilson at? Cool. And then when we saw that monster, we were like, oh, that escalated quickly.
Also, before that, did you notice when she's setting up her shelter, because she uses this tarp that she discovered on the island,
rips in it.
And there's these claw marks in it, right?
Yeah.
So as she is discovering this island, walking around the island, at one point you see her start where her friend had died, and she walks around the island to see if it's an island, and she comes back, and she knows she's come back because she sees her friend still there.
Yeah, she's like, oh crap, I just went in a circle.
Yeah, and so she decides to eventually bury her friend, which in a really horrific way, this monster comes and unburies the dead and drags it out, and there's all this blood and guts that have been dragged out into the ocean. You don't see it happening, but it's just on your peripheral, which makes it so scary. When horror movies do these things that are so peripheral that they don't show the monster straight away.
Yeah, they built suspense really well with the monster.
It was fantastic.
And the monster only comes out at night, correct? Correct. So the monster lives in this hole in the ocean. It only comes out at night, which is, the hardest time for her to survive without the monster, because it's like pouring down rain every night. Her fire is going out. She only has a tarp with holes in it as her, duvet cover. Right. And then she is running from the monster, so that there's like no sleep when it comes to night. And we, as an audience, we felt that. We saw the sun setting each day, and we're like, oh God. Like, I remember being like, I can breathe when it's the daytime, but when it hits that nighttime, baby, we're kind of like wriggling next to each other.
Correct. So there's a point in the movie where she is learning to collect water, build shelter, and then there's a switch where she is trying to just fucking survive this monster. And so each night she tries different... Survive? What song were you saying?
Hamilton. I don't even think the word is survive. I think it's provide. I'm sorry. I keep cutting you off today. I'm gonna shut up.
No, go ahead. Say it. It sounded like you had something really important to say.
I didn't.
You didn't?
Yeah, I was just hype. I was like your hype man.
Oh, my. Yeah. Hype me up. Because I lost my train of thought.
You want some more coffee?
No, I'm good. All right. So, yes, two parts of the movie. Basically, her surviving, which I already said. And then the other part is her trying to survive the monster. And she tries different things each night. One is putting a hammock up on trees. The other one is digging a hole inside the sand. And so these are some ways. Before I get too much into that, you know what this movie really made me think of?
What?
Bambi.
Really?
This movie made me really think of Bambi, or...
I did not think you were going there. Just say more.
Yeah, or the subtitle of the book, Life in the Woods. So I'm talking about Bambi the book. Bambi the book is a horror...
Only you read Bambi the book.
I know. It is a horror book. This book is no fucking joke. You know the end of Bambi with the fire? Mm-hmm. That scene in the book, there are like... these woodland animals screaming and burning in pain.
Jesus.
It's horrific. Also, Thumper. You remember Thumper?
I do remember Thumper, the little rabbit.
Not in the fucking book. Not in the book.
Well, you need a little sidekick in the book. You need a little animal sidekick in every Disney. You know, like Flounder.
So
and
Bambi, yeah.
Baloo from Jungle Book.
Sure, yes, because it's Disneyfied. But in the book, this is what made me think of the book. Bambi has this friend Gobo, G-O-B-O, right? Gobo. Okay. This name just begs to be killed, right? Someone named Gobo, you know they're going out. So eventually, Bambi's friend Gobo is captured by humans and raised by humans, and then is returned back to the wild. And Bambi at this time is learning to live alone, and so he's taught never to pass through trails that have already been trodden, because that will get you fucking killed.
Right.
And so he's constantly
before his mom was killed. That's what
right. He's constantly being told by what they call like the great buck or whatever,
right,
to never go through paths that have already been trodden. So Gobo's raised by humans, learns to trust humans, released back,
and we love a beaten path.
Yeah, and learns to trust humans. And when he's released back into the wild, he accidentally, when he's hanging out with Bambi, once they're reunited, Gobo goes back and sees a hunter and thinks, oh, all humans are safe, and decides to go up to the hunter, and Gobo gets his whole rear end blown off. This is a kid's book.
From Gobo to Nobo.
Yeah, Gobo in searing, screaming in pain, and is killed.
You're making my stomach hurt.
And killed. So this made me think of that, because I've always had this philosophy, learn to live alone. And so this movie for like 50 minutes is this Jen just learning how to live alone. And I love that idea. I love the importance of learning to live alone. And she's a black woman who does it, you know, and you don't see that.
I think that makes more sense than anything, because as someone who has studied black women for 29 years, as in a black body, as a black woman, there is this strong urging of our parents raising and things like that to just be like, be independent, learn how to do things all on your own. You know, even when it comes to our marriage, I'm like, let me set some money aside in case you get a wild hair up your ass and try to leave me one day. At least I got a little something to sit on over here. So it's just like drilled into us to be self-sufficient. So I think she was perfect in this role. Well, one, she's a phenomenal actor, but two, she was great in this role because black women are told time and time again, you need to be self-sufficient.
So is this propagating a dangerous stereotype then? Because it's showing that...
No, I don't think so.
You need to be self-sufficient because it will save your life.
Right, because it's going back to sort of like the magical Negro concept, right? And when that magic happens for someone's own self, as opposed to like in proximity to someone else. So I like this I guess I like good stereotyping in this case, because she's being strong for herself for her benefit, not she's like, you know, Tyler Perry, like you're so strong but you're bitter and you act like you don't need a man. You know, it's not being weaponized. Her strength is not a weapon in this case. It's like, wow, her strength saved her life.
It's almost as if be independent, but not too much. Be independent, but come home for Christmas and Thanksgiving. Be independent, but make sure you have kids. Be independent, but make sure you get married. Be independent, but make sure that you call your grandma on this day. Be independent, but in all these different kinds of ways.
Yeah.
Where in this film, she is independent purely for herself.
For her gain.
Right.
Yep. And her survival, which I can really appreciate. Whereas, like you said, in the real world, it's like, be strong, but not too strong, because you don't want your husband to be intimidated, blah, blah, blah.
I'm never intimidated by your strength, by the way. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I know, that's why you're here. That's why you're in the bathroom with me.
Never intimidated, ever. Even when you yell at me for keeping the clothes in the washer and they get sour.
I think you are intimidated by... I think you're intimidated by the strength of my snoring. The strength of my snores.
Reel it back in. Talking about reel it back in, she learns how to fish.
She does learn how to fish.
And I love that
so
scene.
Empowering.
It's so great.
It made me want to, pick up a little stick outside and be a damn lost boy myself. Because I was like,
really?
Yes.
For how long?
Oh, maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah, because I'm trying to get you... I'm trying to get you to go camping.
Ooh,
I guess the only way you'll go camping is if if you're on some sort of cruise, like a beer cruise,
a booze
cruise.
I think Ben, hear me out. Okay, you know we went to a booze cruise this year, right? And I know you hated it. We'll get into that later. If that
I don't even remember it. That's how great it was.
Oh please, you wrote hella short stories about it. If
I loved
that
it.
ship
I did love it.
Wrecked on the Chicago whatever. Who do you think would survive?
We would just walk to the like.
I'm just saying, if we were way out, like, do you think I would be able to make it if we washed up on like some shore in Indiana?
Again, why are you asking me these trick questions? Well, if you wash up anywhere, if you wash up around here, you'll make it. You're fine.
I don't think I have basic survival. I think I'm strong, but I don't know. I feel like I would step up if my life was dependent on it. But I would be crying. Like there's no emotion with her. There's no time to just like she just has a night of crying. I know we don't have time for that, but
I think oftentimes when people find themselves in this hyper stressful situation, we have, as humans, we've maybe evolved to push away any sort of emotions for the sake of our survival. Which actually brings me into the third part of the movie, which first part, she's learning about the island. Second part, she's trying to survive this monster. The third part, two of her friends who she thought were dead show up on this raft. And the dialogue is really horrendous. I did like...
they were white, too.
They were white.
The two friends were white.
Yeah.
And one of the friends was her boyfriend, but it did not feel that way as an audience member. It was weird. It's like, think about if you thought you were the only person who survived from a boat and then your boyfriend washed up on sea in this little raft and they didn't even really like hug or kiss. It was like, I'm so glad you're here.
I actually think that makes sense.
It does make sense
because what we soon discover is that there's some tension between Jen and her boyfriend. Again, I don't remember his name. There's some tension between Jen and her boyfriend. And what we soon discover is that Jen tells them that, listen, we need to get off this island. This is not a good island. But they've just been on a raft for
a week at least.
A week.
No food.
Yeah, no food or anything. You're like, wait, how did they even...
They're like, we're sitting our asses down.
How did they survive?
Yeah.
And we soon we discover, which they don't say this explicitly because I think they wanted to keep this a PG-13 movie. But there was a third person
in this little life
raft. And we discovered that they had killed this person.
Now, we don't know if they ate that person.
They had to have eaten because they were out in salt water. They had to have drank his blood and eat him. But the movie hints at it.
Well, drinking blood? Because there's water in blood?
Yeah, of course. It will hydrate. Blood? If you ever peel a hangnail and you just it gives it and you bite it, and it gives that sort of metallic penny taste.
Yeah.
When you licked pennies as a kid.
Yeah, that wasn't what I.
That was in your childhood?
I was eating fruit snacks as a child, but I understand if you were eating pennies. That checks out.
Yeah, they were good. So I'm assuming that they must have done that on the raft. So this group, they come on to the desert island, and Jen is telling them, hey, listen, we need to get the fuck out of here because there's a monster here that will eat your ass. Literally, it will destroy you. And her boyfriend's like, oh, sweetheart, don't worry about it.
Sweetheart, you're just delirious. That's why the movie is called Sweetheart, but it's just cringeworthy that he just doesn't even say her name and is completely gaslighting her. And she's like, why would I lie about that? I'm telling y'all because I've been fighting this monster every single night, which again makes total sense. Believe black women, all of that actually checked out that he wasn't believing her.
She didn't seem as stressed as I think she should, as someone would have been, shaking them, being no, we really need to leave. This thing is going to kill us, where she is a little bit more hey, there's something going on here. It's no, you've already seen this monster. It has already chased you. And at at one point, she discovers that this monster can move incredibly fast in water.
It's like twice as fast in water.
Yeah, it sort of moves slowly, which is why she can run away from it when she's on the island. But if she runs on the beach, it would jump into the water and swim and just like jump ahead.
I think that scene was so terrifying. Is that when you dropped your wine on your shirt? You remember when you dropped?
Oh yeah, it was at one. I don't remember what scene that was, but it was.
Ben was like, "Oh, I spilled my wine."
Yeah, we have to stop watching movies in bed and drinking wine. It is not. Well, it's not healthy for my shirts.
We can wash stains out.
Ooh, yeah. So they don't believe her, and the consequence of that is surprise, surprise. They both die. They both die.
But you hate these characters so much that when they die, these brutal deaths, you are very satisfied because they're so cruel to her. They don't believe her. And do you know what these motherfuckers did? Well, so at one point she tried to get into a raft. She's realizing that they're not going to leave this island. They're like, we need food. We need to stay. We've been out in sea for weeks or a week at least. We're not leaving this island. So what she does is she's like, okay, fuck y'all. I'm going to sneak away with the raft that y'all washed up in and try to get the fuck out of here because I'm sick of fighting this monster every day. These white people chase after her, stop her from escaping in the raft, and the white girl picks up an oar and hits her across the head with it. Blood gushing from her head. Then she wakes up, she's knocked unconscious because she's been hit in the head with a freaking paddle. She wakes up and they have tied her to a tree by her wrists. So you're just enraged as an audience member because it's giving you like, wow, these white people were your friend and now they are just brutalizing you in this way. Like, I hope they die. But if this monster comes at night at this point, she's going to have a very hard time escaping because they have tied her to a tree.
She learns
Wasn't that hard to watch? I was like, why have they tied their friend to a tree? Like, if they're all friends, like if this is your girl.
I think they did some good previewing that this couple, they've become delirious out in the ocean
and cannibalistic.
And cannibalistic. So they've hinted up to this point that this couple is not in their right mind. Also, when you eat like human meat, you can get a certain kind of disease. I forgot what it was. But I think there's something else going on here. And when she's tied up, at one point, her boyfriend blames her for the storm that comes in. He's like, there's always a storm just follows you wherever you go, Jen. Before we went on this trip, you weren't having fun when everyone was drinking and having fun. And right after that, a storm comes. So he's like really abusive.
He is.
Like verbally abusive. You're getting all this vibe. Her friend at one point is like, you lied to us and said you got mugs before you went on this trip, and she tries to defend herself. Jen tries to defend herself saying, no, this actually did happen. So you're getting an indication that her friends don't believe her and have not believed her in the past. She's with this verbally abusive boyfriend who she feels it sort of like eternally connected to. And it's not a good situation, but the situation is resolved when both of the friends are killed.
Yes. Jesus,
and they're like, pretty brutally like ripped apart. The one is like ripped. The girl, her Jen's friend, the girl.
That one was very satisfying.
It's like ripped into the ocean.
It's like, okay, this is what happens when you tie my sis to a tree. Like that, you gonna get ate up because you don't want to believe her. Great.
Yeah, they were awful. So they're
awful.
They're disposed of, and then Jen is like, okay, the only way I'm going to survive is not leaving the island and not staying on the island.
I have to face the monster.
But killing the monster. Yes. And so there's this huge plan that she has where she carves up all these little sort of spears. She carves these little spears. She has like a bunch of them. She looks on the island, and this is actually I like this part, but there's a couple of unburials and a lot of human history. It's super taboo to raise up the dead, right? So to unbury the dead. And you have that scene where the monster unearths her friend that she buried.
Brad, the first guy.
And then there's also what throughout the movie we're getting hints that another family got trapped there. And there was a family of 3 that got trapped there. The mom and dad died, and the little girl, we have no idea what happened to her, but she had to bury her mom and dad. So Jen goes to the burial of this mom and dad, unearths them, and then uses their bones to make like knives, shards of knives,
like shanks.
Shanks.
Prison shanks.
She like rips apart their rib cage.
Yep.
And makes and I love that. It's like, okay.
I was like, we on some Lord of the Flies up in here.
But also, when you are trying to survive, you have to ignore human taboos, right?
Yeah.
It made me think, there's a movie called Alive where there's this plane crash. And in the plane crash, some people die in the plane crash, but then you have a group of survivors and they're in the middle of like this storm in winter or whatever. I saw this movie a while ago, but they have to make this ethical decision to either eat the people that died in the plane crash or not. And so they end up eating the people to survive, and they survive. The movie is called Alive, and it's a celebratory movie. It's not like, this is a terrible thing that these people did. No, they did what they needed to survive.
Yeah.
Jen did what she needed to survive.
I like those survivalist movies. I remember when we watched, it's not the same, but I think you showed me Snowpiercer or something.
Oh, yeah.
Where the people in the back of the car had to end up eating like babies to survive or something. They didn't show it, but they told it, and I was just like, and you're saying to yourself, I mean, if I was ever in this situation, I would have to make this choice as well.
Well, I mean, I ate a baby earlier, as I was saying in the podcast.
Yeah, you did. You had the nice, delicious baby earlier today.
I mean, stem cell research is important as well, right?
Of course.
Like you use aborted fetuses for medicine. Like you have to do these certain kinds of things for human survival.
Yeah. That escalated quickly. I liked the movie. I think I went in because this movie is sort of not on people's radar. I think it came out in 2019. J.D. Dillard was not a director that I had heard. I think this is his debut film.
He did actually a non-black superhero film called Slight.
Really?
Yep.
See, but Blumhouse is such this like powerhouse horror story like franchise or whatever. So why haven't we heard of these films, or why have they not gotten as much love? Because 2019 we were still outside, so why couldn't I have gone to see Sweetheart in theaters? Because I think it was great. I enjoyed it.
It's a great movie.
And it's on Netflix. So why is this not? I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say.
I know what you're trying to say, and the answer for that exists, and it's racism, but I think it's a very targeted kind of racism, especially in Hollywood. I think Hollywood prides itself in not being racist, but
America's Hollywood.
Sure.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah, it's very standard.
But what about like Oscars So White and stuff? Like they've done think it's interesting that they think that they're not.
Let's talk about how the creature actually looks.
Ooh.
And the person who did this, I found this out recently, Neville Page also did Cloverfield and Avatar and Prometheus. Avatar with the blue figures. Yeah, he's a big deal. And him and J.J. Abrams worked very closely. Actually, J.D. Dillard worked with J.J. Abrams as well. And so Neville Page is this like old, I think British white dude, and he and J.D. Dillard like worked together to create this terrifying.
J.D.'s like a young black guy too. Yeah. He's like 30s maybe.
Yeah. Yes.
20s, 30s, late 20s, early 30s.
And this monster sort of has like hooves as feet, which and only 2 hooves, so it stands upright. It's about 9 feet tall or whatever. And its face sort of looks like a hammerhead shark, like a smaller version of a hammerhead shark. And it has these tiny little beady eyes. And I loved it because at some point you do see its head like full on in the light, and it's a real creature effect. You're right. A lot of it is definitely CGI, but some of it is not. You actually they sculpted the head.
It's like some Alien versus Predator, honey. I was like, oh.
It was really, really cool. And because it was just one creature, because you see it very rarely, it was incredibly effective. So that's what I love.
You remember I kept asking, I was like, does this creature not have a family or something? Like it's just a monster by itself in a hole in the eye. I was worried. I was like, well, this is the mama, but what happens when the baby creatures come out? But it never, like, it was just a lone creature.
Yeah, some sort of, there's so many different ways. It could be an alternate dimension creature because it comes from this like empty pitch,
it's like
black
bottomless
hole, or it could just be this, it could be extraterrestrial, so it could have come from outer space. We're not really
I like
sure.
that. I like that we can, like, every question doesn't have to be answered.
However, the ending of the film is Jen overcoming this monster because it does move slow on land. So she builds like this fire circle and she has all these knives set up and she ends up like stabbing it to death. And the final image is her making the decision to cut off its head. Mm-hmm. And there's this poetic justice to it because she has time and time again been not believed. Mm-hmm. And now she's going to walk back with this fucking head and say, believe me now, motherfuckers.
Yes.
And that ends the movie. She kills a monster, and there's this like these really, really common drone shots now where it pulls away from the island and it shows her walking, carrying the head. She's decided to sever the head in this very almost like standard sword and sorcery monster.
I don't want to say like tribal, but like that's the
sword and sorcery monster hunter. Yeah,
to behead the monster or the human or whatever is like you really won.
Yeah. And that's the end of the movie. I thought it was a perfect way to end this movie.
As did I. Very effective.
It was an hour and 30 minutes too, so everyone should definitely go check this out.
And again, it's on Netflix. It's complete. Like you have to search for it, which is crazy because wasn't Netflix doing the whole like Black Lives Matter this summer? And so I thought they were sort of collecting all of those directors and stories, but this one just sort of flew under the radar. But go check it out. We had to hunt for it, but it's really good.
The other movie we're going to discuss is Tale from the Crypt, Demon Knight, which came out, 25 years ago now? Yeah. 25 years ago. This movie also has the final girl trope. Yes. I loved it because
it's so campy and so good.
The real creature effects here are great. There's like a demon punching his hand through someone's head.
Yeah, it was just like if you enjoyed like The Thing or just like old school like puppet, like true puppet masters as opposed to like CGI, this was it. It's like a cult classic, but it's really well done.
It's so fun.
And who doesn't love like a young Jada Pinkett Smith?
Yeah, so she is the final girl, and the whole idea is that there is this demon called the Collector who is trying to get all these keys to unlock unlimited power. And he's pursuing this dude named Frank Breaker, who throughout the years has held this key. And inside the key, there's the blood of Christ, which gives you power. And so as the Collector is pursuing Frank Breaker, which is, I guess, the demon knight, like the person who fights these demons, he pursues them to this hotel, and in the hotel, there is a group of people who then have to survive the night against the Collector. Yeah. And slowly, the Collector, played by the one and only...
I'm confused.
The main demon.
So the demon is called the Collector.
Right.
Sorry. I thought the person with the blood key was called the Collector. That's why I was like, wait a minute, what?
No, Frank Breaker is the... I guess like the knight. The person with the key.
The person with the key is the knight.
Yeah, I
But
think.
at one point, Billy Zane refers to himself as the Demon Knight.
Oh, maybe he's the Demon Knight.
Right. That's why I was like, huh?
So I mixed up the movie. We were totally sober watching this movie, and I did not spill any wine.
Is Billy Zane's ass was looking good as hell. He was the perfect villain.
And
he
it's
was so
funny
cunning.
too. He's really funny. So throughout the time, throughout the night, he's constantly trying to seduce each of these characters inside the hotel. And
because once he gets into your mind, he can sort of take over and embody you, and then.
And when he possesses the creatures, they get these like really long puppet tongues, sort of. They're like, how can I describe what's just a monster with a really long tongue,
like a chameleon tongue, or a frog tongue,
or sometimes the tongue comes from the stomach too.
Ew.
So it's like,
ew.
It's It's not as gross as we talk.
It's like a lot of green goo and ketchup for blood and real B movie and campy, but I mean it's worth a watch because I really liked this movie. I'm glad we watched it because we did want to watch one other final girl trope movie, and this was a good pick. Like it reminded me why we missed like the true artistry of puppets and things like that.
I love,
like there was no
we need
CGI.
More puppets.
We got to bring Jim Henson and the gang back.
There is a little bit of CGI because when they kill the demons, first of all, you have to kill the demons by shooting them in the eyes. Oh. And so there's this like green flash of lightning.
So much eye gouging.
Yeah, eye gouging.
It's so campy. It's fun though.
And it's also campy, but there is a decent overarching story, right? So there are these flashbacks, which is the great show don't tell, illustrating that these people who carries these keys have been carrying it since the time of Jesus. So you see Jesus like dying on the cross and this key collecting blood, which is then used to fight off demons throughout the years.
And then you see like World War I or II.
You see World War I. I think it's actually it's World War I. You see World War I, and then you see the key being passed off, and this whole idea that there are these key keepers who sort of keep these demons at bay to prevent people from, demons taking over. But let's just talk about some of the deaths in here because there's a lot of really, really fun deaths.
Yeah, everybody dies except for Jada. Mm-hmm. What was your favorite death?
My favorite death was when I don't love when kids die in film.
Oh, God. Man.
But Billy is this little boy who gets...
what's his name, Billy?
Danny. It was Danny.
Okay.
Billy Zane is... Okay, Danny. We really watched this movie carefully. It's a movie that you're supposed to watch carefully.
Right.
No, it's a movie that you turn on and like get high or drunk or hang out and maybe
let it be on in the background.
Let it be on the. But Danny is reading comic books, and the way he gets possessed is by reading a comic book, which I thought was perfect because it picks up on this whole like satanic panic trope of reading comics will like possess you.
Playing video games.
Well, that's true. That will possess you. You've gotten mad at me a few times because I've gotten possessed by playing a really good game.
Right, of course. Please let people know you're kidding because they can't see your face.
Oh, yes. I'm 100% kidding. That video games do not possess you. But the boy, Danny, reads...
he's reading Tales from the Crypt.
He's reading Tales from the Crypt, which... Sort of the background of this, Tales of the Crypt was an anthology horror comic book. Mm-hmm. Then it was turned into an anthology horror TV series, and then they made a series of movies. So there's a whole...
And then the Crypt Keeper is like this narrator type. And he's horrifying to look at as well. I'm like, why they keep zooming in at the Crypt Keeper? Like, back the fuck up.
You know what this movie reminds me a lot of? We have some good friends, and every Halloween they have these like super campy... Halloween effects and like puppets everywhere and fake blood everywhere. Ooh. So it just reminded me of a really good Halloween house that you walk into and there's all this like actual physical paraphernalia, Halloween paraphernalia. And so imagine put all that in a movie with Billy Zane walking around trying to seduce people. It's great. But I loved when Danny sort of turns into this monster,
child.
the child, but he like grows. He grows like 10 feet or whatever.
Yeah. Oh.
And there's like a tongue sticking out of his stomach, and he's like trying to lick and like stab people. So that was fun. The other one is there's actually 2 black women in this story.
There are. CCH Pounder.
CCH Pounder. And there is this scene where CCH Pounder gets her arm ripped off.
Ooh,
sort of about like halfway through the movie. And then for the next, quarter of the movie, she's walking around killing demons with one arm.
With one arm, because she has just like drank a 5th of vodka to deal with the pain of her arm. And you can see, I mean, they did such a good job playing into like, this is how it feels to get your arm cut off, because she's just like profusely sweating and screaming in agony, but also just like has tightly wrapped her arm and is still fighting. Like, I love this idea of just, she's like, my arm might be gone, but I got this other arm, like, let's fucking go.
And when Billy Zane tries to seduce her, he says, oh, I can put your arm back. I can put your arm back. And she's one of the few who says, like, fuck you.
Right. She, like, lifts her, like, nub of an arm, and he's like, what is that? And she's like, that's me giving you the finger.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, hey.
Where I think every other character does, to some extent, get seduced.
Yeah.
Where it is Jada Pinkett Smith does not get seduced, and CCH Pounder does not get seduced.
Right.
And Jada Pinkett Smith's seduction scene is very terrifying. It's like this plain white room. And throughout the story, you get this sense that Jada Pinkett Smith, who's the cook...
Pinkett, baby.
Pinkett.
Pink, like the color pink.
Pinkett.
Put some respect on her name. Okay, let's try this again.
Jada Pinkett Smith.
Go for it.
Jada Pinkett Smith is sort of the, like, handy woman at this hotel, but she has dreams... Geraldine, yeah, her character's named Geraldine. She has these dreams to travel abroad, and so Billy Zane tries to seduce her, saying, I'll
take you to Paris.
I'll take you to Paris, all these things. Which is sort of the whole Jesus Christ being brought up to the mountain and Satan saying, oh, I'll give you all these things. So each character goes through the temptations of Christ, but in their own kind of way. And that was a really nice touch. This movie is very much thought out of. And
somebody was writing.
Yes, it was so fun. And it has like a 35% on Rotten Tomatoes. Trash. Which is, again, why we should all hate Rotten
We
Tomatoes.
Should. Oh, can I say what my favorite death is?
Yes.
I call him Lyle because he's the guy that played Lyle from George of the Jungle. But he was basically, there's always somebody in the group that's just like, just give the demons what they want. Like, just take the key, give them what they want, and then they'll leave us alone. Which is like, no, fuckface, they're gonna kill us all anyway. So, of course, Lyle's ass, find his real name for me, Lyle's ass steals the blood key and gives it to Billy Zane. Gives it to the Demon Knight. And what happens?
Oh, his name, get this, his name is Roach.
Roach, that's his name, Roach.
Because he's a fucking roach.
He is a roach. I'm glad they named him some purpose. So Roach is just this like annoying ass like macho white dude, and he gives the key to the Demon Knight. And then what happens? Billy Zane was like, "Oh, by the way, Roach, I lied." And then obviously the demons like completely destroy Roach as he's trying to like just walk out the front door, which was perfect because Roach just represented, toxic masculinity. Like, I'll save the day. Y'all don't know what you're talking about. And then he's killed seconds after he hands over the most important prop in the movie. And I was like, and great. Now the Roach dies.
It was so much fun. That actually reminds me, though, that there's a cosmology here, right? So there are higher demons, which is Billy Zane's character, the Collector. And so he's a higher demon, and then there are lower demons, which are sort of like slimy. They have nipple piercings. Like
Are you calling people with nipple piercings slimy?
No, not at all. But literally, it just so happens that they have like slime on them, and like they're all decomposing, and they have nipple piercings for whatever reason. I guess that's more terrifying when you have a demon with a nipple piercing. And so there's this great cosmology. So higher demons, lower demons. The way you kill everyone is demons by shooting them in the eyes, and they all bleed green blood. Higher demons can possess people. So the movie has this nice what I would call like a cosmology to it, and that pairs nicely with the actual real creature effects. It pairs nicely with Jada Pinkett Smith becoming the new sort of key holder at the end of the film.
And all of this paired nicely with
a red wine.
A red wine.
A red wine. Or a mold. A mold.
I think red wine.
This is a great movie to drink like a nice steaming mold red wine, so it almost has that like metallic blood taste as you're seeing like blood.
And you're like drinking it from a goblet.
Yeah. Or some vermouth, because all the demons bleed green blood as well.
Some absinthe.
It's oozy. It's really oozy. Yeah. It's not like a nosebleed. It's like a ooze bleed.
Thank you for that visual, Ben. This is great.
We had a lot of fun.
We did have some fun. We're not even in spooky season anymore, and somehow we still stumbled back into that horror bin. So I had a good time with you.
Yeah. I would like to say, if you know like collections of panel of movies, please give us ideas. We're looking for ideas. Also, we're just going to keep watching movies directed by Black folk telling Black stories.
Yep.
So that we create a market for this, because these stories are fun and they've been pushed to the side for way too long.
Way too long. And Ben, on that note, why don't you warp up the show?
In conclusion, go watch Demon Night. Go watch Sweetheart. Go drink some mulled wine or absinthe and have a good fucking time.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Sci-Fi Sci. Next week, we're watching another movie, y'all, and you can find it on Amazon Prime Video, because that's where we'll be watching it. We'll be watching the movie Kati Kati, directed by Mbinthi Masya. So please be sure to check it out, and as you continue to find more works of art written, directed, starring Black people, please be sure to send those our way on the Sci-Fi Sci Instagram. Also, if you've been enjoying the Sci-Fi Sci, be sure to put a little something down on the Patreon. Just $5 a month will take care of all the things we need. We love y'all so much, and we'll see y'all next week. Bye, y'all.